Sit down, kid. Give us all a little afternoon comedy, will you?
Gregory Wittmann leaned back in his designer tuxedo, one hand resting lazily on the edge of the marble chessboard at the center of his grand living room. His voice echoed, smug and sharp, slicing through the low jazz humming from the ceiling speakers.
Laughter erupted around the room. She probably thinks a rook is something you cook.
Someone chuckled behind their glass of Pinot Noir.
Does she even know the pieces move?
Another guest added, her pearls clinking as she laughed.
All eyes turned toward Maya, an 11-year-old black girl in a faded maid's uniform dress.
She stood still, her frame slight but upright as the golden California sunset poured through the tall windows behind her, casting her shadow long across the polished floor. Behind the velvet curtain near the kitchen archway, Clara, her mother, watched, fingers clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white.
Clara had been in this house for 17 years.
She'd polished these floors, served these drinks, and stood silent through far too many of Gregory's little games. But today, it wasn't just her dignity on the line.
She's only in elementary school, sir.
Clara's voice broke through, barely audible. Gregory waved his hand.
Chess is about the mind, not the age. Who knows?
Maybe she has some hidden spark of genius waiting to surprise us.
Maya stepped forward. She didn't flinch, didn't smile.
Her small hand reached for the chair opposite Gregory, pulling it out with calm precision.
I'll go first, Mr. Wittmann.
Her voice was soft but sure, a quiet strength that made even the drunkest guest pause. Gregory scoffed, pressed the chess clock, and leaned in, clearly amused.
She's got guts, someone whispered. Or no clue what she's walking into. Maya lifted her hand, moved the white pawn forward to e4. A clean, confident opening. Silence. The laughter trickled down into murmurs.
Gregory furrowed his brow slightly, brushing it off with a smirk.
Clara didn't move from the curtain.
Her heart was racing, but her mind was drifting back to nights when Maya would sit at the kitchen table with a flashlight, poring over torn chess books they'd borrowed from the community library. And in that moment, as silence fell and the pawn stood tall at the center of the board, something shifted. Not just in the game, but in every heart watching.
Maya didn't just move a piece.
She moved a room, a mindset, a mountain built on doubt.
If this story moved you even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment below.
Tell us where you're watching from and how Maya's quiet strength spoke to you. And if you believe in the power of stories to challenge, to heal, and to inspire, give this video a like. And don't forget to subscribe for more tales that remind us courage comes in all sizes, brought to you by BUP Stories.
No one had taught her. No coach, no club, just books.
And the memory of Mr. Walter, the old army vet who used to live across the alley and play chess with beer bottles and a cardboard board.
She thinks 4 moves ahead.
He had once said, that girl's going to grow up checkmating fools who underestimate her.
Gregory looked down at the board.
He'd played hundreds of games here, always against bankers, CEOs, men who shook his hand with a smile and feared him behind their teeth. But now, across from him sat a girl, black, poor, quiet, who looked at him like she wasn't here to please. No one in the room, not even Gregory himself, realized this wasn't going to be a game. It was a beginning, the first crack in a wall built on arrogance and assumption. The clock ticked with soft, deliberate clicks, a sound too gentle for the tension pressing in on the room. Maya's hands rested in her lap, steady, unmoving, while Gregory tapped his fingers on the marble board, eyes narrowed at the pawn that had just invaded the center square. Clara remained half hidden behind the heavy curtain, her heart thudding in her chest like a drum. She wasn't sure if it was fear, pride, or a strange rising hope that knotted her stomach.
Perhaps all three. One thing was certain. This wasn't a game to Maya. And Clara had seen that look before. It was the same look her daughter wore the night her only friend at school called her a charity case. And Maya came home silent, eyes burning like fire behind glass.
Back at the board, Gregory moved his knight out confidently.
A classic opening reply.
Let's not drag this out, he muttered loud enough for the nearest guests to hear.
More polite chuckles. But Maya didn't smile.
She reached out, lifted her bishop, and slid it into position.
Her moves weren't rushed, but neither were they tentative. She wasn't guessing. She was building. While the match continued in the center of the grand room, Clara's mind wandered to where it all began. She remembered the tiny rented apartment above the dry cleaners off Jefferson Boulevard, where Maya first picked up a plastic chess set from a thrift shop bin for 50 cents. She'd been 7, bored, curious. Clara hadn't known a rook from a pawn, but she remembered Maya's eyes lighting up like she'd discovered a secret language. Every night after finishing her shifts then as a waitress, Clara would come home to find Maya hunched over the checkered board, facing imaginary opponents, whispering move names under her breath like spells. "You need real people to play with," Clara had said once. "I have me," Maya replied. And the books, those books had come from the downtown public library, stacked beside her bed like sacred texts. Capablanca, Fisher, Polgar. Maya read them like stories. Each match unfolding like battlefields in her mind. Her notebooks were filled with chess notations, strange hieroglyphs of a private universe. Clara barely understood. Gregory leaned back now, lips tight. Maya had just pinned his knight with a bishop, forcing a retreat. The guests weren't laughing anymore. They were watching. Really watching. "She's actually playing," someone murmured. "Maybe she's studying," another replied. Maya didn't hear them. She saw only the board, the geometry, the unfolding terrain of pressure and counter-pressure. To her, every move was a question, every response a story. She had read these patterns, not in books alone, but in people, in the cafeteria lines, in the way teachers looked at her when she raised her hand too quickly, in how adults assumed silence meant ignorance. To Maya, chess was survival, strategy, proof. Back in the service quarters, her room was no more than a closet repurposed with a bunk, a shelf of torn books, and a tiny plastic fan. Yet on those cramped walls, she had drawn diagrams of traps and forks, gambits and defenses. Even her birthday wish last year wasn't for toys, but for a chess clock she saw in a pawn shop window. Clara made it happen. Sold her wedding ring. Maya never found out. Gregory made another move. Poor, rash. Maya's eyes flicked to the piece, then back to his face. She didn't smile, but inside something stirred. Across the room, a man in a navy suit whispered, "Where'd she learn this?" A woman with silver hair replied, "Not in any school around here." Another murmur, "What's her name?" Clara finally stepped out from the shadows, her back straightened, her voice calm. "Her name is Maya," she said clearly. Gregory glanced up for a second. Just a second. And in that second, he lost another piece. The air in the room had changed. Gone was the flippant mockery, the lightness of an upper-class afternoon amusement. In its place was tension, curiosity, discomfort. Maya made her next move, and Gregory was forced to castle, a defensive maneuver. His smile had faded, his brow furrowed. He looked at Maya now, not as a joke, but as a challenger. She was without question playing better than he expected, perhaps better than he was prepared for. And still she hadn't said another word. Clara watched it all. She saw more than chess. She saw a girl demanding to be seen in a world designed to overlook her. She saw every line in Gregory's face deepen. Every casual guest fidget with their drink, every whisper shift tone from ridicule to respect. She whispered to herself, "That's my girl." Gregory sighed and moved a pawn. A weak move, predictable. Maya captured it without pause, setting up a threat 3 moves ahead. Another guest, a man with gray eyebrows and a chess club pin on his blazer, leaned toward his companion. "She's not just good, she's precise, like she's been playing every day for years." "She has," Clara said softly. The man turned, startled that she had heard him. "She taught herself." Clara added. "No coach, no school, just books and will." The man blinked, then looked back at the board. "Well," he said, "then we're not watching a fluke. We're watching a prodigy." Outside, the sun had begun to slip behind the hills. The shadows stretched long across the floor as the board between Maya and Gregory grew heavier with tension. Each piece now felt monumental. Each silence, a weight, each glance, a calculation.
And Maya, just a child in stature, just a servant's daughter in their eyes, commanded the board like a queen who had already seen the endgame. She had walked into that room to play a game. But what she was really doing, whether they realized it yet or not, was rewriting the script they thought they were watching. Piece by piece, word by word, move by move. And in doing so, she wasn't just playing.
She was becoming.
Clara stood by the edge of the room now, exposed, no longer shielded by velvet drapes or the quiet anonymity of the kitchen. Her apron was still dusted with flour from the lemon pound cake she'd been baking, but her posture was as upright as any of the high society ladies in silk gathered across the room. Still, her hands trembled. She rubbed her thumb against the inside of her wrist, a habit she'd picked up long ago to keep her nerves from showing.
Maya was holding her own. Piece after piece.
Gregory's smile had vanished entirely. He leaned forward now, elbows on the table, both hands clasped under his chin. His guests' once laughing, nearly breathless demeanor had become spectators to something no one expected.
Clara's heart ached with pride and fear. She hadn't wanted Maya to play. Not here. Not like this. Clara had worked for the Wittmanns since she was 24. She had wiped the marble floors, arranged centerpieces, managed the pantry inventory, and kept her head down. She didn't complain when guests mistook her for help from the catering company. She didn't speak up when Mrs. Wittmann said she's like family in that performative way wealthy people say about those they underpay. She learned early what it took to survive in places like this, invisibility. And now her daughter, her quiet, brilliant daughter, was anything but invisible. She shouldn't be here, Clara whispered to herself, though her eyes never left Maya. This isn't a place for us. But it was too late.
She closed her eyes and saw another memory. Alabama, 1994, Clara, 16, seated at the back of a classroom. Her hand shot up during history class, ready to correct Mr. Jennings' mistake about the Civil Rights Act. But the teacher looked right past her, called on Brandon instead, who repeated exactly what she'd said under his breath seconds earlier.
Brandon got a nod. Clara got silence.
She had carried that silence for decades.
And now here was Maya, refusing to inherit it. Clara opened her eyes again.
Her daughter had just sacrificed her knight, a piece. Gregory quickly captured with smug satisfaction, only to realize seconds later that Maya had forked his queen and a bishop.
A calculated trap. The guests let out a collective murmur.
A woman in pearls even clapped once before catching herself.
Maya's face didn't change. She was ice and fire wrapped in a child's frame. She's dangerous. Someone whispered from the back. Gregory heard it. He didn't appreciate the tone. His jaw tightened. Lucky move. He muttered loud enough to be heard. Let's see how long the streak lasts. But Clara knew better. This wasn't luck. Maya never believed in luck. She believed in reading people, reading patterns. Even at 8, Maya could tell when someone's smile was fake, when a compliment hid an insult. She didn't cry when girls at school laughed at her hand-me-down shoes, just started sketching new designs in her notebook, saying, "Maybe I'll make better ones someday." Gregory made his move. Maya countered immediately. He leaned back, lips tight. The match stretched on, each move a battle, each silence a story. And as the sun dipped lower, the room held its breath, brought to you by BUP Stories.